Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the weekly POV. This is Josh, and as you can see on the screen, today's episode is all about The Last of Us. So I'm going to be reviewing the first episode of The Last of Us, and that just actually came out tonight. I just watched it a couple hours ago, and I'm very excited to talk about it. This is one of my favorite video games, and I'll just go ahead and recommend for this week. This first episode of the show, but also the video game that was recently re-released, but for PS5, The Last of Us Part One. It's basically a remake of the first game from the ground up, and the lighting, the special effects, the you know the graphics, everything just elevates the game again, and it makes it like it's playing it for the first time again. So I've really been enjoying going back through. This is one of my favorite video games of all time. I played it when it first came out for PS3 back in 2013. I played it again a couple years later for PS4 with the remastered version, and now I'm playing it again on the PS5 with the best versions so far. So obviously, I was very excited about this show. I'm very excited that Craig Mason and Neil Druckmann are behind this show. Craig Mason was the creator of Chernobyl, which I would also recommend. That's on HBO Max. If you haven't seen Chernobyl yet, it's fantastic, and just tells the story of the accident that happened in Chernobyl, obviously. But it's just so well done. So I was really excited about this show. I've been looking forward to this for a long time now, and I gotta say it did not disappoint, at least in the first episode. So I'm gonna talk a lot about that. But before I get into that, I do want to say I realize that there are going to be some differences between the video game and the show, and also that I think there are people from both sides will enjoy this. And what I mean by that is people who've played the game like myself. I think there's a lot of things to enjoy here and a lot of things to dig into. But I also think that people who have never played the video game, and maybe that's you as you're listening to this right now, might enjoy the show as well, for sure. Um, it's really well done so far. We'll go ahead and take a look at imdb.com, the International Movie Database, and right now it's has an IMDb rating of 9.5 out of 10. So I think there's a lot of people who are enjoying this right now. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a 99% critic rating and a 96% audience score. And after watching this first episode, I can completely see why, and I agree, because this is one of the best, first episodes of a series, pilot episode, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen in quite a long time. In terms of just introducing characters, setting up a world building, and you know capturing the feel of one of the best video games that's out there. Now, this show, I have to say, is definitely not for everybody. There's certainly some very graphic, kind of brutal content in it, very violent. Very it can be very gory as well. So, it's definitely not for everybody. So I just want to say that. Um, but again, speaking about, some of the differences between the game and the show, I knew there were going to be some differences. I wasn't expecting this to be like a beat for beat copy of the video game, and it shouldn't be. But I recently read on comingsoon.net about how the Last of Us series is changing how the infection spreads. So in the Last of Us universe, people are infected by the cordyceps fungus by inhaling airborne spores. However, that's not the case in the HBO Max series. The infection will spread through another way, tendrils. So I did notice these tendrils in the first episode, which was different. And I saw that there weren't spores and they weren't putting their gas masks on or anything like that, which was interesting. I'm not going to say I was disappointed by it, but I noticed the change, and I can see why maybe they just didn't want to cover up the actors' faces with gas masks all the time and stuff like that. And maybe that's why they changed that element of the story. It's not something that's really going to be a make it or break it type of thing for me. But And I was also, but I was skeptical at first about Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey playing these roles. Now, I love both of these actors. I love Pedro Pascal in Game of Thrones, and I love him as the Mandalorian, and I love Bella Ramsey in Game of Thrones as well. Um, but you get attached when you're a fan of the video games. You get attached to the way these characters are portrayed. Their look, their voice, their whatever it might be, their accent. Um, so at first it was a little jarring getting used to Pedro Pascal's like American sort of, I don't know, I don't want to call it Southern type of accent, but yeah, I mean, they're from Texas, I believe. So yeah, it was a little bit getting used to that, but once I did, I think their performances are really great in this show, and there were a lot of very good performances, and I'll get to more of those in a little bit here, but the show actually starts in 1968, which I was surprised by. It's because that's not necessarily in the video game. And you kind of go back to these two epidemiologists talking about viral infections and pandemics, something that hits close to home for all of us, of course. Um, but then this other epidemiologist talks about the dangers of like a fungal infection and how that could be even more dangerous. It could be like an end game type of event, um, just because the fungus is hard to cure and it can like alter the brain and but also at the same time like cause you to still survive and everything. So that was an interesting, just sort of, backstory element that was thrown in there to set up the show. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that scene. This episode is about an hour and 20 minutes long, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I'm glad it was that long. I don't know how long all of these episodes are going to be, um, but about the first 35 minutes of this is spent in 2003 introducing us to Joel and his daughter Sarah and Joel's brother Tommy, who will ultimately play a big role. He played a big role in the video game and I'm sure will play a big role in the series as well. I thought, the actress that played Sarah really nailed it and made you care about this character that you're only going to get to spend a half an hour with. Spoiler warning, for anybody out there who hasn't watched this episode yet or hasn't played the video game. Um, that this character has a pretty tragic ending in this episode, and that really propels the story forward. It propels Joel's character and where he is in the show and in the video game. um so I thought that was really well done. There was so much tension that was built, even though I knew it was going to happen because I played the video game. um there was still a lot of tension that was created here, and it's always interesting seeing the start of like an apocalyptic type event. I'm always interested in those kind of stories, and just seeing everything like being calm and normal at first, but then it like kind of falls into this disarray. And when the virus or the fungus starts spreading, this infection starts spreading, and just the chaos that ensues. And you've got planes crashing, you've got buildings on fire, you've got people running around in the streets, some of them are being, it's just chaos. And really was well done, and really felt dangerous, and like definitely set the tone for the series and everything. So, and it really felt like going back into the video game, and it had a lot of the same beats of the video game. And so as a video game player, if you were that too, I really enjoyed that. Um, and as a non-video game player, if you were one of those, then you'll probably enjoy it too. So we get a lot of time spent, like not a lot, but some time spent in 2003. And after that whole part of the storyline happens with the younger Joel, we jump into ahead to 2023 in Boston. Now, I thought maybe they'd go to 2013 because that's when the video game first came out, but they actually end up jumping 20 years ahead to 2023 in Boston. Um, and we just have this kind of very broken man that is Joel after the loss of his daughter and everything. And I love how they included the watch, because the watch is so important, and he still wears the watch that Sarah, his daughter, gave to him, for his birthday. She had it fixed, rather. She had it, repaired and given and gave it to him. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I love how they incorporated that, and we just see Joel again in this place where he's just trying to get by, basically. He's working these jobs around the city, and I believe we're in Boston here in 2023. And um, he's trying to get by. He's trying to get a battery for a vehicle. So he wants to find Tommy. He's heard that Tommy is out in Wyoming. He might be with this group called the Fireflies. Um, and you see around the town, like, all these things pointing towards the fireflies. Like, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light, and the fireflies are supposed to be that light, I guess. And um, they feel like, the military or whatever government is operating right now is basically taking away their freedom. They've set curfews. And the fireflies want to kind of break away from that. So another thing I loved about this episode was how we get these wide shots of what the world is like now, with buildings kind of in ruin and decay, and plant life is just overgrown all over the city. It really captures the feel and the look of the video game, which I really appreciated. Um, we're also introduced to some other characters. We're introduced to Tess, played by Anna Torv, who was in Fringe and Mindhunter, and Tess is like with Joel at the time, and at this time. And we're also introduced to Marlene, who's the leader of the Fireflies, played by Merle Dandridge, who also actually voiced the character in the video game. So that was a pretty fun fact, that they were able to bring that voice actor into the show. So without, I don't want to give away too much, but the rest of this episode is basically about these characters trying to find Robert, who sold a car battery to someone else that he was supposed to give to them, and they're trying to get the battery to get on the road to find Tommy. Um, but they end up running into the Fireflies. They run into Marlene, and as they're kind of on their mission to get the battery, and they end up taking on this mission that they don't really want to, and that is the mission of taking Ellie, who is seemingly immune to the infection. And I just think that Bella Ramsey does a fantastic job in this role, as Ellie. She's just immediately captivating. She has this really tough personality. She just nails it, and I think she does an outstanding job. So I'm interested to see how her and Joel's relationship goes from here. Um, so again, I think the performances overall are fantastic. The way the show is shot, just put me right back into the video game. There's even the scene towards the end of the episode where they're like walking through the rain and trying to sneak through, and you see this final shot of the episode, which is this one building leaning on the other, which is pretty iconic from the video game. And I like pretty much gave a fist pump because I was just so excited about what I was seeing. And then we kind of get a look at some of the future episodes too at the end. Make sure you watch all the way to the end to see the look at the upcoming season, and then an inside the episode, which gives some kind of more insight into everything. But I think this first episode is an absolute masterpiece. I would give this episode a 10 out of 10 Roush rating. I think, as a lover of the video game, I really love what they're doing here, and I think the show's in really good hands, and I can't wait to see what comes next on The Last of Us. But let me know what your thoughts are. Are you a fan of the video game? Are you not? Did you not play the video game? What do you think of the first episode? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And stay tuned to From a Certain Point of View. Stay tuned to the weekly POV for your news, reviews, and points of view. And everything I said today was true. from a certain point of view.